In the heart of ancient wisdom, hidden not in shadows but in plain sight, lies a phrase that has echoed across centuries. As above, so below. It's not just a poetic line. It's a map, a key, a portal, and it begins long before Instagram quotes or spiritual influencers. To understand what it truly means, we must return to its roots, to a mysterious text known as the Emerald Tablet, attributed to a legendary figure named Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes Trismegistus was not one person, but a symbolic fusion. In him, the Greeks merged Hermes, the messenger god, with Thoth, the Egyptian deity of wisdom, writing, and magic. He became a figure of divine knowledge, the one who revealed the hidden structure of the universe. His teachings formed the foundation of Hermeticism, a spiritual philosophy that influenced early Christianity, Islam, Kabbalah, Renaissance science, and modern occultism. The Emerald Tablet is short, barely more than a paragraph, but in that dense scripture it states, "That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to accomplish the miracles of the one thing." Here, the phrase first appears, but it was not meant to be vague. For Hermetic students, this was a formula, a cosmic principle. It described the symmetry between realms, the heavens and the earth, the divine and the human, the macrocosm and the microcosm. Let's pause there. Macrocosm and microcosm. The macrocosm is a great world, the stars, the planets, the invisible worlds, the divine source. The microcosm is the small world, you, your body, your mind, your spirit. The phrase "as above, so below" suggests that the structure of the universe and the structure of the self reflect each other. That what is true up, there is also true down here. That changes in the heavens correspond to changes within the soul. This was not superstition to the ancients. It was their science. To understand the movements of the stars was to understand the cycles of your own psyche. To purify the body was to mirror the cleansing of the soul. They believed the earth was not separate from the divine. It was its reflection. Egypt, in particular, made this idea concrete. The temples of Egypt were designed as mirrors of the cosmos. The ceilings of Dendera temples show astronomical maps. The layout of sacred sites along the Nile matched the belt of Orion. To walk through a temple was to walk through a symbolic version of the universe. To perform rituals within was to harmonize yourself with the cosmos. The Greeks took these ideas and added their own flavor. Plato, for example, wrote of a world of forms, perfect archetypes that existed in a higher realm. Everything on earth, he said, was a shadow of those eternal truths. The real world was not physical. It was above. Later, in Babylon and Persia, astrologers mapped the sky not just to predict events, but to understand the soul's journey. Each planet was not a rock in space, but a force of consciousness. Mars wasn't just about war. It represented action, drive, and courage within. Venus stood for love and harmony, not just in the sky, but in your own heart. So when someone said "as above, so below," they weren't being vague. They were pointing to a belief that there is no true division between spirit and matter, that heaven and earth are woven from the same fabric, that the divine is not somewhere else. It is reflected in you. This principle became the cornerstone of Hermetic philosophy. It taught that by studying the outer world, you could understand the inner, and by transforming the inner, you could influence the outer, that the journey of the soul was not just an escape from the earth, but a realization that earth itself is sacred. It's important to see that this wasn't just mysticism. It influenced real developments in science and art. The early astronomers like Kepler and Copernicus saw their work as spiritual. Isaac Newton, who discovered the laws of gravity, was deeply involved in alchemy. They believed that by understanding the laws that govern the stars, they were learning the mind of God. And in alchemy, not the pop culture version, but the real philosophical science, the phrase "as above, so below" guided every step. When an alchemist sought to turn lead into gold, it wasn't just about metals. Lead was the heavy, unconscious part of the soul. Gold was spiritual enlightenment. The transformation happened both in the lab and in the heart. The phrase also shaped religious mysticism. In Christian mystics, Jewish Kabbalists, and Sufi poets, you'll find echoes of this idea, that the divine light is not far away. It is hidden in the everyday. That prayer, ritual, or sacred music can reveal the harmony between the inner and outer worlds. So when we say as above, so below, we're not talking about a cute saying. We're speaking a code from a lineage of spiritual scientists, people who saw the world as alive, sacred, and connected. We forget this today. We look at the stars and think of them as lifeless gas. We see our bodies as machines. We treat nature as dead matter. But to the ancients, everything pulsed with spirit. Everything reflected something greater. The flower mirrored the star. The heartbeat mirrored the drum of the cosmos. And that is the original meaning. Not wishful thinking, not abstract mysticism, but a deep realization that life is one, that the inner and outer are not divided, that if you want to understand the world, you must look within, and if you want to understand yourself, you must look beyond. That is the doorway. That is the beginning. As above, so below. A phrase that doesn't just describe reality. It invites us to live differently. If as above, so below is the doorway, then what lies beyond it is a mirror, a grand, cosmic reflection in which the human being sees not just the stars above, but themselves. This is not metaphorical in the soft, poetic sense. It is metaphor in its original power, a bridge between two worlds. It is a way of seeing the deep structure of reality, where the patterns of the universe are repeated within a human form, and the life of the individual echoes the breath of the cosmos. The ancients didn't just believe this, they experienced it. For them, the human body wasn't just flesh. It was a temple, a map, a sacred replica of the heavens. And the soul wasn't a vague spirit floating somewhere. It was structured, layered, and alive, a reflection of the stars, the elements, and the divine mind. Take the concept of the 7 planets, for example. Before modern astronomy expanded our vision, the classical world saw 7 wanderers in the sky: the Sun, the Moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. These were not just physical bodies. They were symbols of universal forces, energies that shape both the cosmos and the human psyche. Hermetic and esoteric traditions taught that each of these planets corresponded to parts of us. The Moon was our emotions and instincts. Mercury, our intellect and communication. Venus, our love and beauty. Mars, our will and aggression. Jupiter, our vision and expansion. Saturn, our discipline and limits. The Sun, our center, the soul itself. In this model, you are not just in the universe. You are the universe. In miniature, this is the meaning of the microcosm and macrocosm again. It is not just a neat comparison. It is a sacred structure. As the stars move in their patterns, so do the tides of your emotions. As the seasons change, so do the stages of your life. As the heavens unfold, so does your inner world. This is why many ancient systems, from Vedic India to Egypt to Greece, aligned human anatomy with cosmic order. In yoga philosophy, there are chakras or energy centers in the body. There are 7 primary chakras, often aligned with the same planetary forces. Each one governs a different aspect of being, from base survival to divine consciousness. They rise like a ladder or like planets orbiting a spiritual sun within. Visualize this, a vertical body with radiant orbs along the spine. Now, picture a solar system with planets orbiting a luminous star. The structure is the same. As above, so below lives in the symmetry. But the reflection isn't just about structure, it's about relationship. Just as the earth needs balance between sun and moon, light and dark, warmth and cold, so do you need balance within? The ancient sages weren't studying astrology just to predict events. They were learning how to live in harmony. When Mars flared in the sky, they prepared for conflict within themselves. When Venus rose, they opened their hearts. Every celestial event was a mirror, calling them to align, adjust, reflect. Even breath was seen as a cosmic rhythm. The in-breath drew in spirit, inspiration. The out-breath released expression. The lungs became like the tides. The heartbeat a silent drum mirroring planetary cycles. Nothing was random. Everything was symbolic. Everything meant something. This way of seeing did not make the world smaller. It made it more alive. You can see the same mirror in ancient symbols. The tree of life, found in Kabbalah, Norse mythology, and many indigenous traditions, shows the same truth. The roots plunge into the depths, the branches reach into the sky, and the human being stands at the center, the meeting point of earth and heaven. In Egyptian temples, the lotus opens to reveal the sun, a symbol of awakening. In Christian mysticism, the heart becomes the throne of Christ, the center where the divine dwells. These are not random metaphors. They are keys, visual codes, to help us remember. And remember what exactly? That you are not a mistake. You are not separate. You are not just a bag of skin on a spinning rock. You are a pattern within a greater pattern, a verse in a cosmic poem, a spark in a great flame. Modern science, interestingly, is starting to echo this ancient view. Quantum physics shows that the observer affects the observed. That energy is not fixed, but responsive. That reality itself may be structured like a hologram, where every part contains the whole. In a hologram, if you cut a piece, you don't lose part of the image. You get a smaller version of the whole image. This is exactly what as above, so below is pointing to. And in biology, we find fractals, self-repeating patterns in the shape of lungs, rivers, lightning, galaxies. The same spiral that forms in the shell of a snail is echoed in the arms of the Milky Way. The golden ratio appears in flowers and faces alike. Nature doesn't just build things. It builds reflections. Your DNA is made of stardust. Your atoms were forged in the heart of a star. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen in your breath, all came from cosmic events billions of years ago. As above, so below is not just symbolic. It is literal. It is physical. It is true. But beyond science, the power of this idea lies in how it transforms our view of life. When you look at your mind as a universe, you begin to treat it with reverence. When you see your emotions as cosmic weather, you learn to navigate, not judge. When you recognize that your body carries the same beauty as the stars, you begin to live with awe. This is not about ego. It's about sacredness. It's about knowing that the smallest act, a word, a breath, a thought, ripples across realms. That tending to your inner world is not selfish. It is service to the whole. Because just as the stars reflect your soul reflects the stars. You are not here to dominate nature. You are part of it. You are not above the world. You are woven into its pattern. And by aligning yourself, your thoughts, your choices, your being, you align the world around you. The mirror is always there. In silence, in beauty, in suffering, in love. Every experience is a chance to look in and see the sky. This is the heart of as above, so below. Not just a phrase to admire, a lens to live through, a sacred mirror waiting for you to see, not just a universe, but yourself within it. The phrase as above, so below did not remain locked in temples or scrolls. It was not meant only for meditation. It was practical. It shaped how ancient people healed the body, read the stars, built cities, made art, and transformed the self. It was a tool, not a fantasy, but of transformation. To the Hermetic mind, this phrase was not passive. It was active. It carried instructions. If the universe and self are mirrors of one another, then changing one changes the other. This is the foundation of magic, not in the Hollywood sense of sparks and spells, but in its ancient meaning. The sacred art working with unseen laws to affect visible results. Magic was never about control. It was about alignment. A true magician was one who studied the patterns of the stars, the tides of emotion, the movement breath, and learned to bring them into harmony. Rituals, symbols, and invocations were not superstitions. They were technologies of consciousness, ways to imprint divine patterns into the material world. In alchemy, this principle was everywhere. Alchemists were not only turning lead into gold, they were turning ignorance into wisdom, disease into healing, chaos into order. They believed that every transformation in matter could reflect a transformation in the soul. Fire in the furnace became a fire of purification. Mercury in the flask became the fluidity of thought. Gold was not just metal, it was the image of perfected consciousness. As above, so below, taught that by changing the inner world, thoughts, intentions, vibrations, you could begin to shape your outer world. And by changing your environment, you could reshape your inner experience. This idea filtered into astrology, where the positions of planets were read not as causes of fate, but as reflections of it. The planets didn't force events. They revealed timing. Just as the moon affects the tides, it also touches the waters within us, our emotions, cycles, and intuition. Reading the sky was reading the mirror of the soul. It also influenced early medicine. Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, said, "A physician without knowledge of astrology has no right to call himself a physician." Why? Because the body was seen as a reflection of cosmic balance. Illness wasn't just a mechanical problem. It was a misalignment of energies, a break in the harmony between above and below. Herbalists use plants according to planetary correspondences. A plant ruled by Mars, for example, will be hot, dry, and sharp, useful for fighting infections. A Venusian plant would soothe and calm. These weren't arbitrary beliefs. They came from observing patterns, how the qualities of the sky mirrored the qualities of nature. Architecture, too, followed this rule. Sacred buildings were constructed with geometry that mirrored celestial order. The ratios of the pyramids, temples, and cathedrals were not random. They were designed to align energy, to create harmony between earth and heaven. Walking through such a place changed the mind. It tuned the soul. And then, much later, came psychology, and something unexpected happened. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist, stumbled upon ancient truths through modern science. He noticed that people often experience meaningful coincidences, inner thoughts matching outer events, with no clear cause. He called this synchronicity. It was his way of explaining how the inner and outer worlds connect. Jung revived the idea of archetypes, universal symbols that appear in dreams, myths, religions, and fairy tales across cultures. These archetypes were like planets of the psyche. They move within us, shaping our feelings, choices, and destinies. Jung never claimed this was magic, but he also didn't separate mind and matter. He said the psyche and the world were two sides of the same coin. In Jung's world, as above, so below became deeply psychological. The stars were not just in the sky. They were in the unconscious. Myths weren't dead stories. They were maps of the inner world. And working with these maps, through therapy, dreams, symbols could lead to healing. Modern neuroscience is catching up. We now know that perception shapes reality. That beliefs influence biology. That thought and matter are intertwined. Meditation, visualization, intention, these change the brain, the body, and behavior. What we focus on grows. What we believe often becomes real. So what does this mean practically? It means your inner world matters. Your thoughts are not empty. Your feelings are not useless. The story you tell yourself is reflected in the world you build. If you live in fear, you see danger everywhere. If you live in love, you see beauty where others see dust. This is not magical thinking. It's a psychological and spiritual law. The world does not change without. It changes within. This is the real meaning of magic. To become a conscious co-creator of your reality. Not to force the world to obey you, but to become aligned with a greater flow. To see where the river is moving and sail with it, not against it. Ancient mystics fasted, prayed, and practiced rituals not to impress gods, but to transform their perception, to shift their consciousness until they could see the sacred in all things. The point is not to escape Earth. It's to redeem it, not to float into fantasies, but to live in reality more deeply. So how do you use as above, so below in your life? Start by noticing the mirrors. What in your outer life reflects your inner beliefs? What in your emotions echoes the seasons, the sky, the stars? What symbols return in your dreams? And what do they teach? When you light a candle, do it with intention. When you speak as if your words shape the air. When you walk as if the ground remembers your steps. Everything is connected. Everything is symbolic. You are not small. You are part of the dance. And your life, lived consciously, can become a ritual, an act of harmony between the inner and the outer, the seen and the unseen. This is not an idea to admire. It is a truth to live. As above, so below means you are powerful, not because you can control the universe, but because you are a reflection of it. Your mind is a mirror of the stars. Your heart is a flame of the sun. Your breath is the wind between worlds. Live accordingly. A phrase like as above, so below can feel distant, like something carved into stone by ancient mystics or echoed only in temples and texts. But the power of this wisdom lies in its application. It's not just for sages and seekers. It's for daily life, for morning routines, for conversations, for quiet choices made when no one is watching. Because if the universe reflects you and you reflect the universe, then every act becomes a mirror. Every moment becomes a ritual. Every decision echoes beyond itself. So what does this look like, not in theory, but in practice? It begins with your attention. Where your attention goes, energy follows. The Hermetic principle suggests that when you align your attention with a higher pattern, order, harmony, truth, that pattern begins to unfold in your life. It's not about controlling events, but about tuning your perception, seeing the sacred in the ordinary. When you wake up in the morning, for example, pause before the rush. Feel your breath, not as oxygen only, but as a flow of spirit. In many traditions, the breath is the bridge between above and below. In Hebrew, the word for spirit, ruach, also means wind. In Sanskrit, prana. In Greek, pneuma. All mean both breath and life force. When you breathe consciously, you are not just calming yourself. You are entering a deeper rhythm, the breath of the cosmos within your own lungs. From this space, set an intention, not a to-do list, an alignment. Ask yourself, what am I aligning with today? Love? Truth? Courage? Gratitude? This is how ancient rituals worked. Not magic spells, but acts of deliberate resonance. You don't wait to feel peaceful to become peace. You choose peace, and the world responds. Then, move into the world with awareness. Notice your reactions, your thoughts, your words. Are they in harmony with what you say you believe? This is not about being perfect. It's about being present, noticing when your outer actions contradict your inner truth, and gently realigning. You are not separate from your environment. What you touch touches you. What you create creates you. This is why ritual is so powerful. Ritual is not just ceremony. It's intention made visible. Lighting a candle becomes a symbol of inner clarity. Drinking water becomes a moment of purification. Sweeping your floor becomes a way to clear your mind. Walking in nature becomes a sacred pilgrimage. Everything can be a ritual if you bring attention to it. This is what it means to live as above, so below. But what about more difficult areas? Relationships, emotions, pain? Here, the principle becomes even more meaningful. If the outer world reflects the inner, then your relationships are mirrors. They show you what you project, what you avoid, what you love, and what you still need to heal. This doesn't mean you're to blame for others' actions. It means you are invited to reflect on what your reactions reveal. Are you seeking validation outside because you doubt your worth inside? Are you pushing others away because you fear vulnerability? Are you repeating patterns because they feel familiar, even when they hurt? As above, so below reminds us that healing starts within, that when you shift your inner world, when you forgive, release, speak truth, or set boundaries, you begin to shift the outer world too. Even pain can be a portal. The Hermetic teachings don't promise ease. They promise meaning. That suffering, when met with presence, can become alchemy. That grief, when honored, becomes compassion. That shadow, when embraced, becomes power. It's the same in creative work. Artists, writers, musicians, all live this principle intuitively. They take what is inside and give it form outside. A song becomes a vibration of emotion. A painting, a mirror of the soul. Creation is one of the most direct ways to live as above, so below. Your imagination is not fantasy. It is a divine tool. It allows you to rehearse new realities, to visualize healing, to speak a future into being. And visualization is not just wishful thinking. Studies have shown that imagining an action activates the same neural pathways as doing it. The inner world trains the outer. Try this. Close your eyes and visualize yourself walking through a forest. You are grounded, safe. Every breath connects you to the earth. Above you, light filters through leaves. Each step feels sacred. You feel alive. Now open your eyes. That sensation stays with you. You brought the above into the below. You changed nothing, yet everything. This is the mystery. Not that the world must change for you to feel peace, but that by changing how you see, you shift your place in the world. Living this way doesn't require isolation or spiritual retreat. It happens in life, in cities, in families, in conflict, in laughter. The divine is not far. It is close, closer than breath, always available. So let your space reflect your soul. Let your words reflect your values. Let your choices reflect your awareness. Dress in a way that honors who you are. Speak with intention. Eat with gratitude. Move with grace. These are not rules. They are reminders. And above all, return often to stillness. In stillness, the mirror clears. In silence, the signal strengthens. You remember that you are not the storm. You are the sky. Not the noise. You are the space it moves through. This is not a belief system. It's a way of being. To live as above, so below, is to walk through life as a bridge, a channel, a living temple. Not because you are perfect, but because you are present. Not because you know everything, but because you are willing to see. You are the earth reaching toward the stars, and the stars shining within the earth. Your body is the altar. Your life is the offering. Your awareness is a flame. Live it in a world flooded with content. Quotes pasted over sunset images, spiritual jargon repackaged for algorithms. It's easy for something sacred to become diluted. As above, so below has become one of the most repeated phrases in modern spirituality. But with repetition often comes reduction, and what once guided mystics and sages through the deepest mysteries of life is now too often used out of context, misinterpreted, or turned into spiritual wallpaper. To truly honor the power of this phrase, we must also clarify what it does not mean. It does not mean that every outer event is a literal reflection of your personal thoughts. It does not mean that suffering is always your fault, or that you can manifest anything simply by thinking positively. This idea, common in some modern interpretations of the law of attraction, is a distortion. It shifts the sacred balance of as above, so below into a transactional mindset, where the universe becomes a vending machine and your desires are the coins. But this was never the teaching. The Hermetic principle is not about control. It's about correspondence. The inner and outer worlds are connected, not identical. They are reflections, not duplicates. A storm in your life doesn't always mean you failed spiritually. It may be the weather of your soul or the climate of the collective. And some things, illness, loss, tragedy, happen outside the reach of our minds. They are not punishments. They are part of the mysterious fabric of reality. So as above, so below is not a tool for blame. It is a lens for understanding. It invites reflection, not guilt. Inquiry, not shame. It is also not a shortcut to spiritual superiority. Today, it's easy to use mystical language as a mask, to speak of vibration, energy, alignment, without embodying what those words mean. To quote ancient texts while ignoring the humility, discipline, and transformation those texts demand. Real spiritual insight is not about appearing awakened. It's about becoming honest. And sometimes that honesty is quiet. Sometimes it looks like admitting confusion, or feeling lost, or not knowing what to do next. As above, so below isn't performance. It's a path, and the path includes darkness. Spiritual bypassing is another modern distortion. This happens when people use spiritual ideas to avoid emotional pain, dismiss others' struggles, or escape from responsibility. Someone might say, everything happens for a reason, while ignoring grief, or just raise your vibration while denying real anger or trauma. But true Hermetic wisdom does not bypass. It descends. It enters the shadow. It says, what is within must be brought to light, and that includes pain, fear, sorrow. These are not signs of failure. They are doorways to deeper truth. Then there's the trap of conspiracy thinking. Some people take as above, so below to mean that every event in the world has a hidden, often sinister, symbolic meaning. They look for secret codes and logos, align every event with astrology, or claim that everything is orchestrated by unseen forces. While ancient wisdom certainly acknowledged hidden patterns, it also valued discernment. Not every symbol is a sign. Not every shadow is a conspiracy. Sometimes a storm is just a storm. Sometimes mystery is not meant to be solved, but to be lived. The obsession with decoding everything can become a form of spiritual anxiety. It replaces awe with fear, curiosity with control. And that is not the path this phrase invites us to walk. We must also speak to the commercialization of this teaching. As above, so below appears now on t-shirts, tattoos, coffee mugs. And while there's nothing wrong with expressing a deep truth through art or fashion, we must be careful not to turn sacred symbols into trends. When something becomes popular, it risks losing its weight, its depth. This is not about gatekeeping. It's about remembrance. To truly live this principle means to treat it with care, not to make it exclusive, but to keep it sacred, to remember that it came from mystery, not marketing, from silence, not slogans. So let's ground ourselves in what it is. It is a recognition of correspondence, not command, of harmony, not hierarchy. It reminds us that we are not separate from the world, but also not its puppet masters. It invites reverence, not arrogance. It teaches us to look within when the world is in chaos, and also to act in the world when our inner world is in harmony. It calls for integration. When you feel fear, you don't just ignore it and repeat affirmations. You turn toward it. You learn from it. You heal it. That is a below being tended, so the above can shine through you more clearly. When you notice a pattern repeating in your life, you don't just blame fate or call it a test. You reflect, what part of me is echoing this? What lesson is being shown? That is the work of a conscious being. Not passivity, not shame, but responsibility and presence. And when you see suffering in the world, you don't just say, it's a reflection of the collective vibration and move on. You act, you serve, you bring compassion from the inner to the outer. Because as above, so below is a bridge, and bridges connect. They do not divide. In the end, the misuse of this phrase reveals a deeper longing. People want meaning. They want to believe that life is not random, that their inner world matters, that there is order in the chaos, and that desire is holy. But we must meet it with depth, not shortcuts, with humility, not performance, with real practice, not spiritual image. The phrase is not a toy. It is a threshold, and if we stand before it with integrity, it can still lead us to transformation. So don't be discouraged by the noise. Return to the source. Let the phrase speak through your life, not as decoration, but as devotion. As above, so below is not for display. It is for living. We live in a world divided. Above, satellites orbit the Earth, streaming data across invisible highways. Below, people walk city streets disconnected from the sky, caught in systems that reward speed over stillness, noise over depth. It's easy to feel separated from each other, from nature, from our own inner worlds. But this is why the ancient truth of as above, so below still matters, perhaps now more than ever. This phrase is not a relic. It's a remedy. It reminds us that nothing stands alone, that the soul is not separate from the body, that the earth is not separate from the stars, that every thought, every action, every moment echoes beyond itself. We are not isolated islands. We are waves of a single ocean, threads of a single fabric, notes of a single song. This is not poetic optimism. It is spiritual reality. As above, so below points to unity, not the flattening of differences, but the weaving together of life's infinite diversity into one sacred pattern. In a time of fragmentation, political, ecological, emotional, this wisdom invites us to return to wholeness. It says, if the outer world is in crisis, look inward, but not to escape, to respond. If the environment is unraveling, ask, where am I out of balance? If society is fractured, ask, where have I hardened my heart? What part of me is at war? Because the world doesn't just need more opinions. It needs more inner alignment. More people who have done the deep work of seeing their own shadows, owning their wounds, and anchoring themselves in truth. People who embody the harmony they wish to see. This is how change happens, not only through systems, but through souls. Every great tradition, in its essence, teaches this. That transformation begins within. That peace is not something we wait for, but something we create. One breath, one choice, one act of courage at a time. And so, to live as above, so below, today is to take responsibility, not in the sense of burden, but in the sense of power, the power to respond with integrity, to live from the inside out, to treat your life as a sacred expression of the cosmos. Imagine what would change if more of us did this. If our schools taught children not only facts, but how to listen to silence, how to feel their emotions, how to honor their bodies as temples. If our cities were built not only for efficiency, but to reflect beauty, balance, and belonging. If our conversations weren't just debates, but rituals of connection, ways to see the divine in one another, even in disagreement. This is not fantasy. This is a forgotten potential of human life, because you're not a random accident. You are the result of billions of years of evolution, stardust shaped by time, infused with awareness. You are what the universe looks like when it becomes conscious of itself. And just as the stars shine without effort, you too carry a light, one that cannot be measured in numbers or titles, but only in presence, in love, in truth. To live as above, so below, is to honor that light, to remember that the sacred is not somewhere else. It is here, in your hands, in your home, in your habits, in how you listen and speak and walk. You don't need a monastery or a mountaintop. You need a moment of presence, a breath, a willingness to see the world not as dead matter, but as living mystery. This is a journey, not a destination. You will forget, you will fall, you will doubt, and still the path remains. Still the invitation stands. Still the stars move above you, and your heart moves below them, echoing the same rhythms. So take this phrase and let it shape you. Let it guide your eyes back to the sky, and your attention back to the soul. Let it remind you that the cosmos is not cold. It is alive, and so are you. This phrase is not just about understanding the world. It is about becoming a participant in it, a co-creator, a bridge. You are the link between heaven and earth, the altar of the divine in human form, the witness of the stars and the keeper of the soil. So ask yourself each day, not as pressure, but as practice, what am I reflecting today? What am I aligning with? What am I creating within and without? And when you forget, return. Return to your breath. Return to stillness. Return to the mirror. Because there is no division, only illusion. No separation, only sleep. And when you awaken, you find the world waiting, not to be conquered, but to be loved. As above, so below is not an end. It is a beginning, a seed. And the fruit of that seed is a life lived in harmony with yourself, with others, and with the universe that dreamed you into being. Let this be your prayer, your practice, your path. Live the mirror, walk the bridge, shine the light. And remember, what you do within, you do to the stars. What you do to the stars, you do within. Everything is connected. Everything matters. And so, do you